Welcome to Kitchen Conversations, where I talk with food in my mouth. Oh, my friend Paul stopped by just before dinner. So, of course, as you know, my producer is not going to give me dinner until I do some more work.
Yes.
Because Paul is one of the most educated people on what we were just talking about, vibrations, and how you can ascend up this ladder of vibrations, and how do frequencies have anything to do with what a good engineer would reject, to say that little tiny vibrations are going to heal you. Well, Paul happens to be an engineer. He also happens to be one of the best healers that I know. And he came over today probably to heal me. He's already working on me, and he's going to tell us a lot more. The best dowser I know, especially with a pendulum. And I've seen him do miracles. Every person I've taken to him, he has nailed what the problem was. And then a few days later, their doctor tells them, yes, that is correct. So I don't know whether it's your vibes, Paul, or whether it's the vibratory rate, or whether it's whatever. But can you tell us, because we were just trying to illuminate people on that, because that's your business, really. You're an engineer, but you also do vibratory healing of all sorts. So, Paul, welcome to Kitchen Conversations. If you do a good talk with us, we may feed you later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And I've seen the garden, and it's beautiful. So I would expect that the dinner would be as well out of the garden. So as long as the food's not between your teeth, Douglas, I think we're okay.
Well,
Keep chewing.
Fortunately, we're not filming. It's audio. I have the face for a radio personality.
Yes, I wasn't going to say that to you.
Yeah. Everybody.
You're beautiful to me.
That's why
every time I see your face.
So tell us, how do vibrations heal people? Can you literally strike a what are those things called? A vibrating tuning fork and know that it's going to heal a certain organ and things like that?
Well, I think we might want to start with like a simple concept of sympathetic resonance, and how if you had two tuning forks of the same frequency and you strike the other one, which is already vibrating with the first, you will actually hear it. You'll be able to detect that it is vibrating, because the transfer of energy from the one tuning fork will be detectable at the other. And this is easily demonstrated. If you go onto YouTube and type in sympathetic resonance, you'll come up with one of my favorite videos that I share with people all the time. And a gentleman sitting with two tuning forks in a wooden box and demonstrates sympathetic resonance. Actually, there's a bunch of videos on YouTube around this, as people have done multiple experimentations of how this natural physical phenomena works.
Well, you do it to me every time I meet you. How are you, Paul? I'm perfect, just like you. And then you make me hug you the opposite side, heart to heart. That's all about vibration, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, we are. In fact, what you're saying is so true, because we were already in sympathetic resonance with one another on a constant basis. Our organ systems, when it's out of balance, is lacking this resonant pattern to perhaps what you would consider to be the archetype. We've gone out of disharmony with the archetype. And when we clear the dysfunction, which is often on the emotional plane, right? Speaking about, resonance, what my thoughts are working on, I'm going to be in resonance with those patterns. So if I'm being positive and upbeat, I will attract that to my space. And if I'm downcast and having a bad day, then I attract that to my space as well. And if I can just simply transform my thinking and unload the pockets of disharmony, then I can begin to go into resonance with these other aspects and with the angelic realm that you so often talk about. I love your discussions on how to know the higher worlds, and that is really all based on going into resonance. So part of the discussion, as you say, a healer, really not just really assist people in their own work to rebalance. And somebody who's doing the work to rebalance is going to go into resonance with the proper frequencies, proper energy support sources to gain the rebalance. So we take supplements. supplements aren't just biochemical, they're informational, and they're all vibrating, right? They all made up atomic structures that have electrons that are buzzing around.
You just gave me some medicine, but before you gave it to me, you checked it, and you checked it with your pendulum to see if it was correct for me. And a bottle I had bought, almost of the same name, you checked and you said, no, this one isn't very energetic, and this one is extremely energetic. That is amazing to most people. They can't comprehend that. Can you explain that?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple different ways to do dowsing. There's what's called mental dowsing, where a person will be asking a question to some dowsing authority, whether it's their guardian angel or the field around the earth, or to some dowsing gods, or whatever they're in resonance with, to ask those questions. And there's vibrational dowsing, in which the pendulum can be tuned to the person's energetic field. And so, again, speaking of sympathetic resonance, I can use this pendulum and create a specific length that coordinates or corresponds to a person's tone or note, their overall energetic field. And then from there, test their system or test supplements to see if it's in resonance or not in resonance. It's really not a yes or no. It's not to say whether or not a particular supplement is good or bad, but it might be an indication of such. But a simple data point, is this supplement in resonance with somebody's field? And so we can tune that pendulum length. It's like a one-string monochord, one string, like a guitar string. We attune the guitar string to a particular note, and this note happens to be the person's note or tone. I think Steiner talks about tone when it comes to a person's energy field. And so if I can tune it to your tone that you have, and I can teach you to do the same with this one-stringed instrument, finding the proper length, because for antenna theory, everything's based on length. The length and shape of the antenna is what provides its ability to go into reception and transmission to those set of frequencies or those energy patterns, right? It's the antenna shape that does that. And so different shape antenna gets a different frequency range and for its actuation. And if it's not the right shape, it won't be able to receive those particular signals. And so this shape, geometry, if you will, and is essential to discovering what it can be in resonance with. And so if I take the length of this pendulum and tune it specifically to your field, then now it's in resonance with your field, and then I can test that humic minerals that I felt your body could use and see that it provided a yes, I'm in resonance type test. And pragmatically what that means is it was spinning clockwise, and neutral is just spinning back and forth, and spinning counterclockwise would mean it's not in resonance. And again, it wouldn't be an indication necessarily that the supplement was bad. It would just simply be not the right one for your energy field. So hopefully that kind of helps narrow that down. And so then you can go on from there and realize that every organ system has its own frequency by which it operates, and all the cells in that particular organ, like the liver, will have a base frequency. And when that communication goes out, then actually what happens is the shape of the organ goes out, because the shape and the frequency and the color, all these are all becoming synonymous type ways of describing the same thing. The shape is a frequency, is a color, is we have in our discussion that form follows function. Well, in our world, in the biogeometry world, which we haven't talked about, but in this frequency world, function follows the form, meaning the form provides the function, and that form provides the resonance for that function. And when we go out of resonance with that specific form in a particular organ, it becomes inflamed, as they might say, or becomes diseased. It distorts, and it's no longer the same shape, because that shape is basically a resonating chamber that's going to have a specific resonation with all those cells that know about it, and they communicate with one another in that way. So once that resonance is lost and the shape is lost, which are basically synonymous, then we have disease. And so if we can restore the archetypal pattern to that organ or to that thought process, right? If I can go into resonance with the higher dimensional spiritual beings. Yes, Tyler.
Yes, I have a question
Yes,
because
go
I
ahead.
know you know all about this. People want to protect themselves in their environment, and I know you assist people in doing this in their homes. Can you offer any tips or suggestions? And you also have a website. I'll put the link up here if you refer to
Sure.
anything that you offer. Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I did mention very quickly biogeometry. It's a very deep subject. I studied with Dr. Gilbert down in Asheville, North Carolina. He's become quite popular.
Yeah, we love him.
Yeah,
Tyler
he's-
studied with him. I met him. He's
And
marvelous. And that's where what you were talking about, the length of the pendulum, the string. I tried using a pendulum 1,000 times, never could get it to work. Once someone explained that to me, it works like just brilliantly. It's just instantaneous. Once you know that you have the right length, the pendulum spins like watching you the first time. I couldn't believe how fast your pendulum just starts moving one direction or the other. But Tyler, you are both students of biogeometry, but also you have more devices to heal and for good vibration than anyone I know. As a matter of fact, we're giving you one to add to your amazing thing that you do with people, the Biomat, which is it's sending electricity, clean electricity through crystals, tourmaline and amethyst, and it creates piezoelectric energy. And literally, the FDA says that this reduces stress and can therefore be helpful in reducing cancer symptoms.
Is that the
before
same
cancer
FDA
happens.
that says that vaccines are safe and effective?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to check with
That
you.
is correct.
But wait a minute, it's taken away from Paul. He's got a lot of good
I'm
stuff.
just saying. So that's just one thing. You get the chi on there, and then you have so many amazing devices that when it comes to that, and one of them you healed me with when I had Montezuma's revenge and nothing could stop it. Boom. And I think you brought that device with you, didn't you?
I did. And I'll get back to your question. I'm not going to ignore it, but let's get his limp star in, and then so this limp star device actually is this it's a Rife based device. You can look that up. There's a lot of data on it, but basically Rife was healing cancer tumors at 100% rate because he could figure out what he called the moratory oscillating rate. Again, going into sympathetic resonance. It's the same thing as the old commercials, we saw, is it Live or is it Memorex? The opera singer would sing and the glass would shatter. Well, she's gone into resonance with the bass frequency of that piece of crystal and put enough energy into her voice that it vibrated so much that it shattered. So, and he was doing that with cancer cells. Yes, he was doing that with cancer cells. And so if you haven't studied Rife, he was using this moratory oscillating rate and could cure cancer at 100% rate, meaning the tumor. He couldn't cure cancer. We can go back to what cancer is. That's actually detrimental energy from our emotional body that's creating stagnant, areas of our system. And specific emotions are doing it in specific areas because I've gone into resonance with those dark emotions and they create disturbances. And so as a part of that disturbance, a tumor forms. And he was able to eradicate tumors at 100%. This was back in 1930. So biogeometry is this wonderful, wonderful universe, methodology, discussion, path of initiation that someone can explore. And out of that has come these wonderful devices that, based on a biogeometry principle called shape-caused waves, I can develop, or somebody can develop a complex geometry that goes into resonance with specific energy qualities and patterns that can mitigate, neutralize, and transform many of the detrimental energies that we're working with. And like the EMFs, the electromagnetic waves that we're being pounded with on a constant basis, and for geopathic stress that runs in the earth, and our coincident discussion is these EMFs that are running around. And yeah, I do have some of those listed on my website, and we use them all the time to help clear houses and clear people. And I don't leave home without it. Basically, it's very, very difficult time that we are living in, and it's all hands on deck. I've also been looking at these other devices. They're clothing from, I think it's Lambs something. I forgot the exact name of the website, but if you typed in Lambs and EMF protective gear, I've got a hat. Actually, my son's got the hat right now because he's lost his, but it's a protective gear that you can put on, and we've been experimenting with it. It's like on, off. Well, off, you can feel all the vibrations, and you put it on, and like your head becomes this quieted place that the EMFs can no longer penetrate into it. And so it's another additional piece of gear that will help out the pendants and the other devices that we're wearing, because it's become quite extraordinary, the level. So all these EMFs that are coming in, they're frequencies that are naturally occurring, right? They all come from the sun. It's just the amplitude and the density of them. We're not used to it, and so we're having to deal with these. And so how do I create a protective barrier? Well, this protective barrier is using these devices based on biogeometry principles that go into resonance with these higher order energy patterns, 0 point, if you will. And so I can begin to create a bubble around my body, around the house, around the car. And they're part of the question, or they're part of the answer to the question of how to survive in this dense environment of disturbance. I gave you some minerals earlier. And so without having those minerals, and you're the expert on talking about the spiritual forces in the minerals, I can't keep up with you when you talk about it, but I get pieces of it to understand that these minerals are in resonance with these spiritual forces, but they're also on just an energetic level. This is how we our bodies pump energetically. We need the ionic forms of these minerals in our bodies so that it will pump, and these ions continue to cause the body to move and flow and chelate. And a part of the construct, this difficult field we're in, is it uses up the minerals in our system dramatically. And without a proper water, without proper minerals, we actually can't go into resonance well. And so I'm trying to get back to one of your statements here where you said the pendulum would swing so fast. And so what my experience has been, if someone is not real well hydrated and real well mineralized, that it makes it more difficult for them to go into resonance with what they're trying to test, or with the pendulum, or with other spiritual forces. Like I think it's paramount that we have a healthy, functioning physical form that is people with their head on straight as well. And so that allows us to go into and vibrate with many of these higher forces that you like to talk about in all your wonderful discussions that I try to listen to. And
Well, I was in your place once, and you were working on me, and going, "Oh, this is marvelous. How many things you got cooking here at one time, Paul?" And so, well, I got this, and I'm looking at this, and going, "Okay, now wait a second. That's not what I'm feeling. I'm feeling something." Do you remember this happening? I said,
Yes.
"I'm feeling something different, totally, man. Whatever, you got something going in here that is absolutely sending me into outer space, and I love it. I got to find it." So we started turning things off and looking. Listen, folks, you can't imagine what Paul has rigged up. You can't imagine it. Also, tell them about safe space, and tell them about how you can, on people's property, put in orgone collectors, orgone this and that, and Searle and these wound copper things, and just everything to get it all in perfect, beautiful resonance, right? So I'm looking and looking and looking. He's going, "No, it can't be this." And I'm going, he handed it to me. "No, that's not it. This, no, that's not it." Finally, he gives up, and I look down. I'm giving up, and I look under, and way underneath this thing, there's this other box. I'm going, "Wait a second, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh, I do have that on also." You had white gold.
yes,
And you were running some kind of energy through white gold. Now, white gold appears in nature naturally, but they also say that it's like the thing that advances your consciousness better than anything else in the universe. And I don't know what happens when you send the electricity through it, but it was so amazing. I've been meaning to come back and steal that from you.
I almost brought it today, so you wouldn't have had to steal it.
Because I love that, and I love this thing too. And so while you're talking, tell them about this. Didn't you help invent this thing right here?
I helped put it back in the market and provide a tuning up of that electrical system. It's a light disc. It was using the LEDs in this specific one have a property with certain metals that are no longer available, unfortunately, and went off the market. So I'm not so certain about the newest ones being made, but this particular one, with the update that I did to the circuit board, promotes this biogeometry wave that is called Biogeometry 3, or that I like to just call 0-point life wave energy. And it has wonderful effects on people so many times. And in combination with, again, frequency, it's 660 nanometer red, approximately, which causes blood flow, lymph flow, DNA repair, and stem cell corrections and healing.
It's got a safe space disc on it, doesn't it?
And it does. Well, again, it has the biogeometry on the PCB on the printed circuit board, which is based on biogeometry, and the radiant room that's sitting there, which you find on my website, is brilliantly made by the Safe Space person, Joyce Calkin, over there at Safe Space. She's quite knowledgeable in all this, and her commitment to constantly update the designs as the energies get more toxic and difficult is very much appreciated. And so it has a radiant room. It's actually an older style, but it still works quite well, and it amplifies itself. And what is it doing? So it's causing the person's system to go into opening up like a gateway, so it can go into resonance with like the archetypal patterns of a person's being, their organ system, and lifting it up. So like that gold that you were talking about, like the gold Moses gave to all the children of Israel, and they walked around the desert for 40 years. It causes a person to go into resonance with this higher energy set and pulls their system up to that set, and allows for extraordinary things to happen, like walking around the desert for 40 years and not getting sick. So that other device you were talking about, I didn't build it. I just use it. It comes out of the Slim Sperling realm. Yeah, and so he's got all these devices. Slim has passed a few years ago, and he built all this, what he called life light tools that are specific lengths of copper winding in instruments like that. And there's another one that you've seen that's called the feedback loop that his silent partner, Bill Reed, who has now passed, developed, that has these same type of qualities of moving and transforming energy based on what they have been tuned to be in resonance with. So for instance, one of the rings that Slim has made is supposedly in resonance with the sacred cubit that comes out of the Great Pyramid. And actually, he found that there were multiple sacred cubits there, and built several different rings based on that construct. And so using that ring allows a person to go into resonance with that particular healing field and a field of energy, and provide a benefit. Sometimes we understand fully what it means to go into resonance, and sometimes it's a really deep hole to figure all that out.
Now you have, and I've seen it, created your own way to capture resonance, record it, put it into some kind of machine, and then you can emanate that. So it's kind of like radionics.
A broadcaster? Is it a broadcaster?
Well, I call it an energy capture device. It's gone through a few iterations. It's basically a capacitive chamber that works off the principle that everything is vibrating, and that we can capture that vibration And pragmatically speaking, when we're doing that capture with a computer, most of it sounds like noise, but it is in the audible range. And so we actually can play a homeopathic remedy that has been captured by such a chamber. And we've got like 6,000 remedies that we've captured and have a database of that. And so part of what you've seen me do is tune my pendulum to your field and then bounce through a whole series of homeopathic remedies based on discussion with you about what's going on and looking up specific remedies for that. And so like these homeopathics are using the same construct of sympathetic resonance on some levels that either can be in tune or out of tune, tonic or a pathogenic form of homeopathic. And so one of those is in phase with perhaps the disease process and will actually amplify it enough because the body has gone into like this numb state with it, doesn't recognize it anymore, and it gets it out of that mode, and then the body can now see, the being can now recognize that there's a disturbance and then work on it. And the other one is that it's out of phase, and it's one of those home run remedies where you give it and the person's symptoms immediately clear up because it's specifically the right tone or note or frequency that's right out of phase with whatever that disease process is. And as it becomes a level C, it's completely calms all the waves, and you have a flat line. If you can think about it, if a buoy is going up and down and you map it out over time, it's called a sine wave. And then if you have the inverse of that, and that sine wave is like the description of the disease process, because these disease processes have frequencies associated with them. They vibrate at a specific wave length and such. And if I can find just the inverse of that for that disease process, and it happens to be this particular homeopathic, and then we can enter that into the system and it will completely flatline this wave from running or being in disturbance.
So Royal Rife, eat your heart out. Paul Stumpo's here with his own device. Now, this is the gentleman who one day, while we were having a kitchen conversation many years ago, Tyler said to me, could you please create a device that could cause children to have gamma waves in their brains so that they can have super learning? I said, oh yeah, that's no problem. All I have to do is invent it. So I'm going to steal 3 ideas from Tesla on antennas, and then I'm going to steal ideas from radionics machines that can traverse time and space. And then I'm going to take some of the super learning stuff and we're going to throw it into this box. And we're going to call it a cube. And then when I made it, and it was really, really crude, he says, well, we need an engineer to test this. And actually, the specifications must be very exact and I can't do it. So she said, well, I know an engineer, Paul Stumpo. Let's get him on the line. Calls Paul Stumpo from the kitchen and says, funny, you should call because I'm standing
that's not how
here talking to Bridget Bowler right now.
Okay.
And we're talking about Douglas Gabriel. And did you just say you're married to him? And that's how you came to be the engineer for the cube. And so some people might think we're hallucinating or just it's our imagination.
Everybody in our neighborhood thinks that, honey.
Yeah.
No, the thing is that once we knew the principles that had to go in the cube, we needed to build the antenna and it had to have precision. And Paul is an engineer who also knows how biogeometry and radionics work, then developed the antenna for us. Put it together, and then that's where your sigils come from. So this is a way that we could get those good vibes out to everybody without costing you any money and get it to you immediately. The other things that Paul is talking about is once you're in this good space and you want to increase it, then you might want to go to his site and see what other devices he has, because you may have some particular needs, like you're in a room and on the other side or the smart meters or something.
Yes.
And so then you need to increase it.
Yes. Add multiple layers.
Yes.
Right.
It's all about layering.
Yes.
This is about your vibrational bioarc,
Mhm.
and we have here an expert on it. And when I need to know something new because I get bored, I just call up Paul. He'll tell me what he's working on. So it's beautiful. I believe that was so good that I'm going to get to eat. Does Paul get to eat too?
Let's hope.
So thank you very much for this kitchen conversation, Paul Stumpo.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's been wonderful.